Hi everyone, here's what's bothering me today. There was some news recently in Canada that didn't make the news, at least not really. So we're going to talk about that a bit right now, and then there's going to be another story that I'll probably have to cover tomorrow. So the first story that I want to talk about is about this strike, a workers' strike that was happening at the Port of Montreal in Quebec. Now, these workers were striking in the first place because they had a dispute with their employer. Their employer, the Maritime Employers Association, imposed extended workday hours without consulting workers. And on top of this, the workers at the port have been without a contract since December of 2018, and they started to refuse overtime and weekend work earlier this month. So this in many ways was kind of a last resort, especially because the company did not actually come to them saying, hey, we'd like you to work more hours. They just imposed it on them. And so what ends up happening is this comes to the House of Commons because understandably people are concerned about critical things such as pharmaceuticals and medical supplies just sitting in containers at the port. Okay, a valid concern. But what should also be a valid concern is the demands of the workers basically being disrespected and also having to continue working without a contract. That's also on their employer. Additionally, another part of this that deserves a lot more scorn and scrutiny is that the Liberals and the Conservatives joined together to pass a motion to force the striking workers back to work. The Bloc Québécois, the NDP, and the Green Party, and 3 Liberal MPs all opposed the measure to force these workers back to work. So once again, we have even more proof that the Liberals and the Conservatives often tend to vote hand in hand on the things that directly impact the working class the most. What also makes this particularly damning is the Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet, and I have issues with him, don't get me wrong, but he said quite clearly in the House of Commons that the strike could be called off immediately if the government just kind of ordered the Employers Association to cancel the scheduled work changes. And the strike would have been over. Instead, they're using back-to-work legislation, which a lot of people should rightly recognize as being terrible and incredibly damaging. But this is also very distressing because the Supreme Court of Canada has ruled in the past that workers have the right to go on strike. Which maybe that means that this government's actions could then be seen as unconstitutional. Who knows? But this is once again an issue of the Liberals and the Conservatives voting hand in hand in some of the most terrible, god-awful, and egregious ways. And yet there are still people who will think that, oh no, they are so much better. They're barely better. They're just two sides of the same neoliberal order coin that is making this country so frustrating and difficult to live in for millions and millions of Canadians. And the fact that many of my fellow Canadians still don't realize that the Liberals are in many ways just as big a problem as the Conservatives is definitely what's bothering me today.